Is a big trade coming for the Chicago Bears? We break it down here on tonight's episode. Welcome into Bears Now by Chat Sports. My name is Harrison Graham. Jay Glazer, Fox, on the pregame show, listed the Bears among the teams that he's hearing are expected to be aggressive at the NFL trade deadline, and obviously the Bears beat the Bengals, and so maybe they do end up trying to make a splash here. Here's what he had to say earlier today. He said the teams I would say are most aggressive right now going into the trade deadline are the Seahawks, Bears, 49ers, Cowboys, and Eagles. And then later when talking about the Bears, said they are looking for defensive help. He later specified pass rush specifically. Now, watching the game play out the way it did today for the Bears defense, obviously you could use more pass rush. It was a good sign to get a strip sack from Austin Booker. I think Montez Sweat this second month of the year has actually played pretty well. I still wouldn't say he's lived up to the contract, but he's played much better in October and early into November than he'd played in September. Dayo Odeyingbo left this game with an ankle injury, so that could play a role. You know, if he's out for extended time, we already know Dominique Robinson's out for probably at least another game, and then Shamar Turner's out for the year, so they might just need a body regardless. But you could certainly use more on the pass rush front. And look, let's face it, from a defensive defending the pass standpoint, just a disaster against the Bengals, and it wasn't much better against Tyler Huntley and the Ravens either. Joe Flacco threw for a career-best 470 yards. He's 41 years old. You weren't getting enough pressure other than a brief kind of stint early in the fourth quarter where you got home a couple times. You couldn't cover in the secondary, especially at corner. If I'm the Bears, I am sniffing around for corners and pass rushers. I don't know if you can get one of each. I'm not saying you break the bank. I'm not saying that's where the Bears are at, but you know, Glazer's saying they're in an aggressive mode, and I think corner and pass rusher are the two spots. If you can add an impactful piece without just mortgaging your future, that would be a position to try and do that. If the Bears make a trade, we will have it covered. If it's a big enough trade, we'll go live, unless it's 2 o'clock in the morning and I don't see it till the next morning. But if it's in normal hours, it's a notable trade. We'll be going live here on the channel. At minimum, we'll have a full video reaction for you guys. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. We'll be live tomorrow anyway on Monday for our normal Monday show. We'll be live Tuesday anyway for NFL Trade Deadline Watch. So a lot of live content to come. We'll have all things covered when it comes to the NFL Trade Deadline and the Chicago Bears. All right, let's start with some edge trade targets with a Glazer mentioning pass rush help specifically. Trey Hendrickson. Do you beat the Bengals and take Trey Hendrickson while you're at it? He didn't play in this game against the Bears, obviously, but you wonder if the Bengals' kind of thoughts and plans pivot here. They lose in heartbreaking fashion to the Bears. They're 3-6 on the year. Their defense can't stop a nosebleed. Joe Flacco's a nice story, but they're not going to win enough games to be in the mix in December. Do they just trade Trey Hendrickson like, hey, we'll take a second, third-round pick for him? I don't know if I'd give up a second, but I would for sure give up a third if that was on the table for the Bears, and then kind of probably just play this year out and see what you want to do long-term. But I do wonder if Hendrickson re-enters the trade landscape. Kayvon Thibodeaux with the Giants. Now, the latest reports were that New York's asking for a 1. Let me be crystal clear. I am not trading a first-round pick for Kayvon Thibodeaux. It's not going to happen. The only way I'd consider it is if you got like a second back. Like maybe I'd think about it then, but I'm not in the business of trading a first-round pick for Kayvon Thibodeaux. He's a nice player. I don't think he's an elite player. Having a really good year against the run. He's kind of splashy as a pass rusher. It's kind of comes and goes. I'm not giving up a first-round pick for that. But if the price dwindled down to a second or a third, certainly a third, I would consider it. We've discussed a player-player swap there. Would you do that? Maybe, but wouldn't do a first-round pick. The guy I've liked all along is Jermaine Johnson. Now, recent reports saying if they were to trade him, they'd want a second-round pick. That's ridiculous. He tore his Achilles last year. He's been a good player in the NFL, but he's never had that elite year. Second-round pick, no thank you. Now, third, I'd consider it. Fourth, I'm all in. Fourth-round pick for Jermaine Johnson, sign me up. Now, it seemed like he and the Jets had come to an understanding that they're not going to trade him. Could that change? Well, maybe that's why they're throwing out a second-round pick out there. They don't think they're going to get that, but if they do, would they consider that trade for that price? I think they'd be silly not to. I'm not trading a second for Jermaine Johnson if I'm the Bears, but if that price comes down to a third or later, I would consider it. Jaelan Phillips with Miami, same deal. I'm not doing a 2, but if a 3 or 4 is out there, I would consider it. Remember, Ryan Poles in the third round has been really bad. Velus Jones, complete whiff. Zach Pickens, complete whiff. Karan Amagaji looking like a complete whiff. So, that should play a role here. I'm not saying you should just be like, well, we're never going to pick well in the third round, but that is a round that the Bears have not drafted well in historically. So if there is the right player out there for a third-round pick, I would certainly be interested. The difference between Jermaine Johnson and Jaelan Phillips, by the way, Johnson has his fifth-year option still next year. Phillips is playing under the fifth-year option right now, so you would have less time to make a decision on if that player is here long-term. If you trade for Jaelan Phillips, you got to decide pretty quickly if he's a long-term piece. Okay, I'll throw Danielle Hunter in here. I don't think this is that likely, but with the Texans losing today, they're 3-5 now. C.J. Stroud in the concussion protocol. If he misses another game, they're probably 3-6. Would they just consider trading the 30-year-old Danielle Hunter? Now, I don't know what the asking price would be. Again, I'm not doing a first. I don't think there's a trade out there I would trade a first-round pick for realistically, so I'm not in that business. But Danielle Hunter's a hell of a pass rusher. He's been good this year. I'd consider a second. I would certainly do a third for someone like him. Again, I'm not sure the Texans would trade him, but they do have Will Anderson Jr. coming up the pipeline in terms of having to pay him big money. So, it wouldn't be like the craziest thought to have if the Texans were to pivot off Hunter in the next 12 to 18 months. So just a name I wanted to throw out there. There hadn't been a ton of buzz there, but I thought he was worth mentioning. Who is your dream Bears trade target? Drop his name down in the comment section below. If you could get one guy, who would you get? All right, some other edge rushers out there. Bradley Chubb, the other Dolphins guy, I'm not as into him. He's got a big contract. He's a fine player, but, he's making over $20 million per year. I'm not that interested at that price tag. Arden Key, I think he'd be a good rotation player. Matt Judon, not sure how much is in the tank, but if you give up nothing for him, like a late round swap or something, I'd be open to that. Arnold Ebiketie, same deal, probably be a pick swap. Boye Mafe, there was a report over the weekend that the Seahawks have gotten interest on him and Riq Woolen. We'll talk about him when we talk about some corners. I'm intrigued by Mafe's potential. He hasn't quite lived up to it. I'm also not convinced the Seahawks would trade him, so don't really know what the cost would be. I mean, would it be like a third or fourth? I don't think I'd do a day 2 pick for him, but if it fell into day 3 status, I would be at least intrigued. Again, not sure that the Seahawks would be willing to move on. All right, today's show is sponsored by PrizePicks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. I've won one lineup on Sunday. I've lost one lineup on Sunday. So we'll see how I do the rest of the weekend. The way PrizePicks works is simple. You pick more or less on stat projections for 2 to 6 player lineups. If you hit, you win money. On PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose FlexPlay, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the Power Play. No matter your play, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Check it out today. A little 2-player lineup for Monday night's action. Dak Prescott, Jacoby Brissett, I'll keep it simple. Taking more on both. The Cowboys defense stinks. Dak's been cooking, so I think he'll have a big game. $20 lineup to win $60 for this 2-player lineup. Very simple. Again, you can go up to 6 players in a given PrizePicks lineup. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, Riq Woolen. Let's look at some corners now. Again, Glazer said defensive help. Did mention pass rush, but after today, I think corners got to re-enter the conversation. I think Riq Woolen, I think clearly at this point he would be an upgrade over Nahshon Wright. I give Nahshon Wright credit for battling. He's actually in position a lot, but multiple times he's actually in decent position on T. Higgins and just doesn't make a play on the ball. He's a good backup. I think he's elevated his career. He's a nice backup to have, but I think the longer he plays, the more you can expose a guy like this. Now, to be fair, I didn't think Tyreek Stevenson was great against the Bengals either, but before this game, he had a really nice stretch of ball before the injury last week. So I still think you feel pretty good about where Tyreek's at, but I think as the season's gone on, that Nahshon Wright spot has been a little dicey. I think good receivers can get the better of him pretty clearly. Okay, Alontae Taylor, a player we have talked quite a bit about. He's got that kind of nickel outside corner flex, which I like that value where you can move him around, do some different things with him. Obviously, he knows the scheme. He played under Dennis Allen the last 3 years, so you like that too because he could get up to speed very quickly. Again, all these questions you got to ask, are these upgrades over Nahshon Wright? The answer is yes, I'd be interested. If not, I mean, sure, you could look for a depth piece, but I wouldn't give up anything significant for a guy who you're not going to bring in to start. Rasul Douglas, quietly playing well. Thought he played pretty well the other night against Baltimore as well. Had a couple of nice coverage reps. They signed him in August. With Chris Grier getting fired, it sounds like the Dolphins are going to be more willing to sell. I think Ian Rappaport reported that the expectation is that they are going to make multiple trades. So a guy like Rasul Douglas, like, why would you keep him if you're Miami? 30 years old. He's a one-year rental. Even if it's just a pick swap, get something for him. I'd do a pick swap for Rasul Douglas immediately. I think he's an upgrade over Nahshon Wright and can help at your other outside corner spot. Cam Taylor-Britt, early on in the game, I thought he had a couple nice reps on Rome Odunze, who did not play well against the Bengals. Taylor-Britt's had an up-and-down year. They benched him at one point. They've gone back to him. So I don't know where he and the Bengals sit in terms of, like, their future. He is in the final year of his rookie contract, but he is a player that is on the radar. And, again, common theme with all these teams other than Seattle with Riq Woolen, these teams are probably entering sell mode, right? And then you got the Commanders with Marshon Lattimore. Ben Solak mentioned him as an option. They play here on Sunday night, so as you're watching this, that game's ongoing. If Washington loses and falls to 3-6, do you sell off some veteran pieces if you're the Commanders and start thinking beyond this year? Because at 3-6 in a crowded NFC that has 10 teams that are 500 or better, it's going to be a tall task to make the playoffs at 3-6. Now, they win tonight. They probably stand pat. They probably don't give away any notable pieces. Lattimore's been playing better recently. Had a pick off Mahomes last week. But he would be a name to monitor if Washington loses. Again, would not give up more than probably a late-round pick or a pick swap. Other corners, Isaac Yiadom. Maybe the Saints want to extend Alontae Taylor, and maybe Yiadom would be a guy they would trade. That could be on the table. Deonte Banks sucks, but he's available. You wouldn't have to give up anything for him. He'd probably fall into that depth category. I think Nahshon Wright's better than Deonte Banks. Joshua Williams, early in his career with the Chiefs, did some good things. He's kind of fallen out of favor there. I think he's in the last year of his rookie contract, so that's a potential name to monitor. Kristian Fulton, they signed this offseason. A lot of people thought he was going to start opposite of Trent McDuffie. He's been a little banged up. Some other guys have stepped up for the Chiefs, so he's kind of lost in the shuffle there. So he could be a guy you get for cheap potentially. Then Mike Hughes with Atlanta. He's starting for them, but with them falling back in the mix, they have some young guys playing well at corner too. He could be a guy that could get moved. He's got some outside nickel flex as well. All right, bigger need, corner or edge? What would you say is the bigger need for the Chicago Bears? Let us know in the comments section below. And then real quick, just rapid fire some other names that have been out there. Breece Hall, got to think that's dead with how well Kyle Monangai looked. It sounds like DeAndre Swift's injury isn't long-term, so I would think the Bears are pretty comfortable with that pairing. Shelby Harris, if you just want kind of a vet, depth defensive tackle, he's still pretty solid. Draymond Jones, kind of a tweener, can play some edge, can play some inside. You can drop him into coverage occasionally. He actually has 4.5 sacks this year, so he's an interesting name. Cam Jordan, a vet, Dennis Allen connection. Is he willing to sign off on a trade from the Saints? I'm not sure. And then Tyree Wilson could use a fresh start from the Las Vegas Raiders. Probably wouldn't cost much if he became available. Another kind of tweener defensive lineman that the Bears could look into if he were to free up. All right, there you have it. Jay Glazer saying the Bears are among the teams that are expected to be aggressive. How aggressive will they get? We'll have to wait and see. What a win earlier, by the way. If you missed our post-game reaction, go check that out. My name is Harrison Graham. Hit that subscribe button and bear down.